Very much.
Justin, thank you. 7 minutes to 9. The Conservative MP Mark Reckless has written to David Cameron asking him to make it clearer how the Whip's office works. What are the pressures used by the government behind the scenes to keep party discipline, get its measures through? The background, of course, is that interview from the 1990s in which a Conservative MP who was a whip in Ted Heath's government talked of MPs getting helped out over scandals, over a range of troubles, including, he said, a scandal involving small boys. Was that just silly talk, or is it the case that the Whip's office collects information and allegations about MPs but doesn't pass it on, even when it appears to be criminal? A little earlier I spoke to Mark Reckless and to Michael Brown, who was a Tory whip in the 1990s. I started by asking Mr Reckless to make his case.
My fear is that in the past the whips may have known and recorded information about MPs, and we need to see whether any of that information related to criminal activity, particularly in terms of underage sex or anything that would be relevant to this child abuse inquiry, where you have a system at the heart of Westminster that operates on the basis of inducements and threats, irrespective of the particular information held. You have to look very carefully at how that information is used. If I was working in a private company and I was to say to someone I found out that they were having an affair, and if I was to say to that customer or client that unless they help me in my work, then I would reveal that information, then that person might well go to the police alleging blackmail. Why do the whips think they're different?
Michael Brown, is that the kind of thing you used to do?
I'm afraid Mark, I think, has got slightly the exaggerated view of whips, who, in my opinion, and from my experience in the 1990s, actually had no power. I think it's a lot of smoke and mirrors and exaggeration.
So, Michael, to your knowledge, whips, no whip has ever threatened to reveal someone's having an affair or suggested they might, unless they're more cooperative or perhaps
certainly not in my time. You have to remember, Mark,
really?
Of course, that we were a minority government. John Major's government was hanging by a thread. I was whipping people like Geoffrey Dickens, Sir Nicholas and Lady Winterton and Dame Elaine Kellett-Bowman, and the notion that if I had any, inverted commas, dirt on them, I would use it to threaten their future careers. They would have just laughed in my face. Whips exaggerate the power and influence that they have. It's all smoke and mirrors.
Do you have evidence, Mark Reckless, that it is anything more than smoke and mirrors?
I'm aware of one or two instances where I had been planning to do something that another MP was going to help with, and then they withdrew, telling either me or someone in my office or someone close to me that it was because of pressure brought on them by the whips.
But pressure, pressure can be legitimate, can't it?
Well, I'm not sure that it can. In the course of someone's work, if you say to them that unless they do what you want or help you in your job, you're going to reveal they're having an affair, which was the example I was used. I think in other walks of life that would generally be considered blackmail.
Mark, what do you think about that specific example, Michael Brown? If you knew that someone was having an affair and you threatened to reveal it, would that be acceptable or unacceptable?
Well, it would, one, be unacceptable, but why on earth would I want to do it? I need that vote on a future occasion. It's a...
you might not look that far ahead. You might say, we've got a big vote coming up, we desperately need to win. That's what the Prime Minister's told me to do.
Then I would be a very bad whip. You always need to recognise that the Member of Parliament is required the day after and the day after that. And the last thing I would ever want to do, and I can't believe any sensible whip, any whip that did do anything like that, in my view, should be sacked and shouldn't be there in the first place.
Mark Reckless?
If as a whip you have that sort of hold or worse over someone and you use it on one occasion and they give way, you can use it on future occasions. And since 2010, we've also had the Bribery Act, which has applied and specifically states it applies to Crown servants. And I would like to see what a jury would say if an MP was voting against the interests of their constituents or in a different way than their conscience dictated, because a whip had implied that were they to support the government on a particular vote or more generally, then they would be made a government minister. I think things are different than they were. And actually, if you're holding personal information on people and processing it, you need to register with the Information Commissioner. I can't find any registration for the Whip's office. Are they relying on the individual constituency representations of MPs? And if so, if they pass information to another whip and that whip uses that information improperly, would they be criminally liable?
Well, I certainly agree that any whip that behaves in the manner suggested by Mark should should never be a whip in the first place. I found that the most effective way of trying to persuade somebody like Sir Nicholas and Lady Winterton to vote for the government was to say to them, look, the Chief Whip's got a bet on me with Nicholas that I can't get you into the lobby tonight. We better go to lunch at my club. If it was Dame Elaine Kellett-Bowman, she made it quite clear to me who was the senior partner in the relationship, and she would let me know when she was going to support the government.
Yeah,
and
but not everyone's so feisty. Come on, there. You're using a few examples there. There are a few other people who the suspicion will be, either because they have careers ahead of them that they want to pursue, or because they are frightened because of something that they have done, that those people are vulnerable. And the plan that Mark Reckless has is to reduce their vulnerability.
I honestly don't think he needs to worry. He need look no further than Ian Duncan Smith, who was an absolute nightmare in the 1990s during the Maastricht debates. He went on to lead his party and become one of the most successful cabinet ministers the Conservative Party has had.
Michael Brown and Mark Reckless as well. Thank you both very much.
Those tweeter first lines of short stories.